Have you ever worked so hard on something that it became a part of you? Poured your soul into a project, stayed up countless nights, sacrificed time with your family, only to watch someone else take all the credit? That's exactly what happened to me. But here's the thing. I didn't just let it happen. I let her think she won. And that decision? It changed everything. My name is Linda Chen, and for 6 years, I was a senior analyst at Meridian Tech Solutions, one of the biggest consulting firms in the city. I wasn't just good at my job. I was exceptional. My data models had saved clients millions. My strategies had turned failing companies into success stories. But in the corporate world, being good at your job isn't always enough. Sometimes, the people above you see your talent as a threat, or worse, as an opportunity. Victoria Ashford was our vice president of strategy. Tall, polished, always dressed like she walked off the cover of a business magazine. She had the corner office, the executive parking spot, and the ear of every board member. But here's what most people didn't know. Victoria hadn't had an original idea in 3 years. Every presentation she gave, every brilliant strategy she pitched, it came from someone else's work, usually mine. At first, I didn't notice. She'd ask me to collaborate on projects, to share my insights in private meetings. I thought I was being mentored, that she was grooming me for a promotion. How naive I was. The first time I realized what was happening, I was sitting in the break room when I heard my own words coming from the conference room next door. Victoria was presenting my quarterly revenue strategy to the executive team, word for word, slide for slide. My name? Never mentioned. Not even once. I confronted her later that day, politely, professionally. She smiled at me like I was a child who didn't understand how the world worked. "Linda, sweetie," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "In this company, ideas belong to the team. You're part of my team, which means your work represents all of us. You should be proud that your contributions are making such an impact." Then she patted my shoulder and walked away, leaving me standing there, speechless and humiliated. That's when I learned my first lesson. Some people don't just steal your work. They make you feel guilty for even mentioning it. But I wasn't ready to fight back yet. I told myself it was politics, that I needed to play the game, that my turn would come. So I kept working, kept producing brilliant strategies, kept watching Victoria climb higher while I stayed exactly where I was. For 2 more years, I watched this pattern repeat. Every major project I completed somehow became Victoria's triumph. The Morrison account turnaround? My strategy. Her presentation. The digital transformation roadmap that won us a Fortune 500 client? My 80-hour work weeks. Her standing ovation at the company conference. I started keeping records, saving emails, documenting everything. Not because I had a plan, but because I needed proof that I wasn't going crazy. My colleagues knew what was happening. I could see it in their sympathetic glances, hear it in their careful silence when Victoria took credit for something they'd seen me create. But no one said anything, because in the corporate world, speaking up against an executive doesn't make you brave, it makes you unemployed. So we all played along, and Victoria kept winning. Then came the Titan project. It was the biggest opportunity our company had seen in a decade. A complete operational overhaul for Titan Industries, a manufacturing giant struggling with efficiency and market relevance. The contract was worth $42 million over 3 years. Whoever led this project successfully wouldn't just get a promotion, they'd become a legend in the industry. And the board had given Victoria exactly 6 weeks to develop a presentation-ready strategy. She called me into her office on a Monday morning. "Linda, I need you on something big," she said, her eyes gleaming with ambition. "The Titan project. I want you to develop the complete strategic framework. Analysis, implementation, roadmap, risk assessment, projected outcomes. Everything. I'll need it in 5 weeks." 5 weeks. For a project that should take 3 months with a full team. But I nodded, because that's what you do when an executive makes a request that sounds like an order. I disappeared into that project like it was the only thing in the world. I analyzed 15 years of Titan's operational data. I interviewed former employees, studied their competitors, mapped every inefficiency in their supply chain. I barely slept. I missed my best friend's wedding. My mother stopped calling because I never answered. But I created something extraordinary, not just a strategy, a complete transformation blueprint that would revolutionize how Titan operated. It was the best work of my entire career. When I submitted it to Victoria, She spent 3 days reviewing it behind closed doors. Then she called me in. "This is acceptable," she said, as if she were doing me a favor. "I'll refine it and present it to the board next week." "Good work, Linda. You're really becoming a valuable team player." That phrase, team player. The corporate world's favorite weapon against people who actually do the work. But something was different this time. Maybe I was tired of being invisible. Maybe I'd finally had enough. Or maybe I just realized that if I didn't stand up for myself now, I never would. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Victoria. I wasn't going to report her to HR or complain to her boss. No, I was going to let her present my work. Every single word of it. And I was going to make sure it destroyed her. You see, I'd learned something important during those 2 years of documentation. Victoria never actually read the work she stole. Not carefully. She'd skim the executive summary, memorize a few key points, and rely on her presentation skills to sell it. She was so confident in her ability to charm the board that she never bothered to understand the details, and that was going to be her downfall. The strategy I'd submitted was brilliant. Everything in the main document, the slides, the executive summary, it was flawless. But I'd also included something special in the appendix. 300 pages of supporting data, technical specifications, and implementation protocols. Information that Victoria would never read, but that any competent executive should know if they'd actually created the strategy. And buried in those pages? Strategic decisions that directly contradicted each other. Mathematical models that looked sophisticated but contained subtle, deliberate errors. Risk assessments that, upon close examination, made no logical sense. I also did something else. I scheduled a vacation day for the exact day of Victoria's board presentation. But I didn't go anywhere. I came to the office 3 hours early, went straight to the IT department, and had a conversation with James, our head of technology. James had been at the company for 12 years. He'd watched Victoria's rise, and he'd watched talented people like me get pushed aside. "I need a favor," I told him, "and I need you to not ask questions." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "What do you need?" I handed him a USB drive. "This contains the complete, original Titan project files, date-stamped, version-tracked, with my name on every document. I need you to make sure this is backed up somewhere secure, somewhere that can't be deleted or modified. And I need you to keep it quiet until I ask for it." James took the drive without hesitation. "Victoria taking credit again?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. "It's already done," he said. "And Linda? Whatever you're planning, I hope it works." I smiled for the first time in weeks. It will. Because I'm not fighting her. I'm letting her fight herself. The day of the presentation arrived. I sat in a coffee shop across the street, my laptop open, monitoring my email. Victoria had sent a company-wide message that morning, announcing her groundbreaking strategy for the Titan project. She'd even included a teaser. "Prepare to witness the future of operational excellence." The arrogance was almost beautiful. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the executive boardroom. Attending would be our CEO, the entire C-suite, 3 independent board members, and 2 representatives from Titan Industries themselves. The biggest audience Victoria had ever presented to. The most important moment of her career. And she was about to walk in there with my work, completely unprepared for what was coming. Because I'd done one more thing. 3 days before the presentation, I'd sent an anonymous email to David Thornton, Titan's chief operating officer. In that email, I'd mentioned that I'd heard about the upcoming strategy presentation, and I'd politely suggested that he might want to review the technical appendices carefully. Sometimes, I'd written, "The details matter more than the pitch." I didn't sign the email. I didn't need to. I just needed to plant a seed of doubt. I wasn't in the room when it happened, but I heard about it from 7 different people within an hour. Apparently, it started perfectly. Victoria walked in, wearing her signature power suit, smile bright, confidence radiating. She began her presentation with her usual charm, talking about vision, transformation, and strategic excellence. The board members nodded. Our CEO smiled. The Titan representatives looked impressed. For the first 20 minutes, Victoria owned that room. She breezed through the executive summary, highlighting the key strategies, the projected efficiency gains, the revenue potential. She made it sound like she'd personally saved Titan Industries from extinction. And everyone believed her. Because she was that good at performing. Then came the questions. David Thornton, the COO from Titan, raised his hand. "Miss Ashford, this is impressive work. But I noticed something in Appendix C. The supply chain optimization section. You've recommended centralizing distribution through our Newark facility, but in Appendix G, the risk assessment suggests decentralizing to reduce single-point failure. Could you explain that strategic contradiction? The room went silent. Victoria's smile never wavered. That's an excellent question, David. The apparent contradiction is actually a nuanced approach too. She launched into a vague explanation about flexibility and adaptive strategies. Impressive-sounding words. Completely meaningless. But she sold it with such confidence that I'm sure some people almost believed her. David nodded slowly. Then he asked another question. And the projected efficiency gains on page 47. You've calculated a 32% reduction in logistics costs based on the implementation of automated inventory systems. But the capital expenditure analysis in Appendix K shows equipment investments that would take 7 years to recoup. How do you achieve 32% savings in year 1? Victoria stumbled. Just slightly. But everyone in that room noticed. She tried to pivot, to redirect to the big picture vision. But David wasn't done. He'd read the entire appendix, every page, every contradiction, every subtle error I'd planted, and he started asking about all of them. Our CEO, Richard Morrison, joined in. He'd built this company from nothing, and he didn't get to the top by being fooled by charisma. Victoria, these are reasonable questions. Can you walk us through the mathematical modeling behind your efficiency projections? She couldn't, because she hadn't read it. She hadn't created it. She didn't understand it. For 45 minutes, they dissected her presentation. Every question exposed another gap in her knowledge. Every answer she gave revealed that she was performing, not explaining. The board members exchanged glances. The Titan representatives looked increasingly concerned. And Victoria, for the first time in her career, looked terrified. Finally, Richard Morrison held up his hand. Victoria, I'm going to stop you there. This strategy document is clearly sophisticated work, but I'm not convinced you understand your own proposal. Who actually developed this analysis? The room froze. Victoria's face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried to smile. My team, of course. This was a collaborative effort. Who specifically? Richard's voice cut through her deflection like ice. Before Victoria could answer, Richard's assistant entered the room and handed him a tablet. He read something, his expression darkening. Then he looked up at Victoria. I've just received some interesting information from IT. Apparently, the original files for this project show a different primary author, Linda Chen, your senior analyst, who, coincidentally, is not in this meeting and whose name doesn't appear anywhere in your presentation. The board meeting ended 20 minutes later. Victoria was asked to leave the room. The Titan representatives rescheduled their decision, and Richard Morrison personally called me. Linda, I need you in my office. Now. I walked into the building an hour later. The entire floor seemed to know what had happened. People stared as I passed. Some looked sympathetic, others looked shocked. A few smiled. Richard's office was on the executive floor. I'd only been there twice in 6 years. He was sitting behind his massive desk, my project files open on his computer. Sit down, Linda. His voice was calm, but I could hear the anger beneath it. Not at me, at what he'd just discovered. I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. Did you create the Titan project strategy? Yes, sir. Every analysis, every model, every recommendation. It's my work. He nodded slowly, and Victoria presented it as her own. It wasn't a question. She did. He leaned back in his chair. Why didn't you come to me sooner? How long has this been happening? I pulled out a folder from my bag. 2 years of documentation. Emails, project files, date stamps, version histories, everything. I didn't come to you because I didn't think I'd be believed. Victoria is a VP. I'm an analyst. Who would you trust? I slid the folder across his desk. But I didn't need you to believe me. I needed her to expose herself. So I let her present my work, knowing she didn't understand it, knowing she couldn't defend it, knowing that eventually someone would ask the questions she couldn't answer. Richard spent 30 minutes reviewing my documentation. When he looked up, I saw something I'd never seen in an executive's eyes before. Respect. Linda, what you did was unconventional, risky. You could have been accused of sabotage. I met his gaze steadily. I didn't sabotage anything. I created excellent work. She chose to steal it and present it without understanding it. I just made sure the truth had a chance to surface. He smiled. Actually smiled. You're right. And effective immediately. You're being promoted to Director of Strategic Analysis. You'll lead the Titan project presentation next week, with full credit, with a team of your choosing, and with a salary that reflects your actual value to this company. Then his expression hardened. As for Victoria, she'll be asked to resign by end of business today. I won't lie to you. Hearing those words felt like justice, but it also felt sad, because Victoria could have been a real leader. She had charisma, connections, and opportunity. But she chose the shortcut. She chose to steal instead of create, to perform instead of produce. And in the end, it destroyed her. The next week, I presented the Titan project strategy to the board myself. I answered every question with confidence, because I understood every detail. I'd lived with that project for 5 weeks. It was part of me. And when I finished, the Titan representatives stood up and shook my hand. We won the contract. $42 million. And I got every bit of credit I deserved. Here's what I learned from all of this. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be violent or destructive. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply letting someone's own actions catch up with them. I didn't ruin Victoria's career. She did that herself the moment she chose to take credit for work she didn't understand. But I also learned something else. For 2 years, I stayed silent because I was afraid. Afraid of losing my job, afraid of not being believed, afraid of rocking the boat, and that fear cost me time, recognition, and opportunities. If I'd acted sooner, if I'd documented and exposed the pattern earlier, maybe Victoria would have been stopped before she hurt other people. So here's my message to anyone listening who's ever had their work stolen, their ideas claimed by someone else, their talent exploited. Don't stay silent forever. But don't fight without strategy either. Document everything. Build your case. And when the moment is right, let the truth do the fighting for you. Because liars and thieves always make mistakes eventually. Your job is just to make sure those mistakes matter. Today, I'm still at Meridian Tech Solutions. I lead a team of 12 analysts. I've landed 3 major accounts in the past year, and every single presentation I give has my name on it. Every success is mine to own. And you know what the best part is? Victoria's name is never mentioned anymore. Not in meetings, not in emails, not even in gossip. She's been erased from the story she tried to steal. That's real revenge, not destruction. Replacement. I didn't just get even. I became everything she pretended to be. And sometimes, that's the best justice of all.